when I was in college, and everyone's like, Anna, you got to meet this one chick. She's like a huge Star Wars fan. Da, da, da. And I made a Han Shot First reference, and she didn't get it.
Oh.
And I was like, because she's like, oh, I was like, who's your favorite? She's like, oh, Han Solo. And I was like, oh yeah. And I don't remember exactly what I said, but I made the reference, and she had no idea what I was talking about. And I was like, okay.
Hello, what's up, all of my Ewoks, Tribbles, Droids, and Wookiees, and welcome to One Story Building, where we just can't get enough fucking Star Wars guests. Today's guest is video producer, media critic, and someone who wants to marry Henry Cavill and have Baby Yoda as a baby.
Oh my
It
God.
it is Anna, also known as that Star Wars girl. Welcome
Hi,
to
and
One Story Building.
thanks for having me. And the first thing I got to correct you on is
Mhm.
it's travel, like travel.
I'm just not in love with him, so I don't care.
I'm not in love with him. I just think he's a great Superman. You want to see this great doll that I just got? This $300 Hot Toys doll of him?
Is it
There you go.
anatomically correct?
No, it's like a Barbie, but I
Oh,
mean,
sure.
my friends would joke that his arms aren't they're too long because they all joke that his arms are too short, but I think that's fine.
Yeah, you have a lot of Star Warsy, comic booky, pop culture stuff in the background. How did you collect all of that comic book
Some of it I
nonsense?
made, some of it I bought, and some things people have sent to me, which is very nice.
And did you draw the Harley Quinn and the Mike Myers behind you?
Yeah, those are oil paintings that I did, and I paint on my art channel. So the Harley Quinn one, you can see like the whole process. I painted that all live on here on my art
Mm.
channel.
And there's Baby Yoda. So I was correct.
My baby Yoda, my Hot Toys baby Yoda, which I love, and he's great, and he sits there and watches over everything.
Making sure that you don't make a mistake, or he'll force choke you.
Everything I do, I think it's just a mistake. I just it works out in the end.
Well, let's dive into that. As I was diving into you and figuring out all about your stuff, I stumbled upon a video of yours, which was a review of episode 2 of Redo of Healer. That charming anime, family anime.
Is that
From
how you found my channel?
No, I already knew about you, and then I was like, all right, it's time for me to get professional. Time for some to go through all of her stuff.
And that's the video you picked.
Let's start with that, and then we'll get into Star Wars. Redo of Healer, that lovely anime.
That
Okay.
anime is great. If you guys haven't seen it, go watch Redo of Healer. You have to watch at least until the end of episode 2.
Well, let's okay. Speaking of episode 2, you detail the scene where the main character breaks the fingers of all of a woman main
Princess.
character, and as you were talking about it, you said, that didn't really affect me very much, and I was like, oh wow, not affected by fingers breaking. Whoa, intense. And then you got to the point where he holds up a hot firewood fireplace poker, yeah. And he says, you can either take this rod or my rod. And you said, oh, well, he did give.
I have an image for everyone. Visuals. See that sticker?
Uh-huh. Oh my
That's it.
God.
I
Why do you
know.
have that?
Because it's great. Why wouldn't you have that on your iPad cover?
Fair enough. Can't argue with that. So the
Yeah.
fact that you were so untormented by this gruesome cartoon, I was wondering, what sort of media did you watch growing up that hardened you to such horrible violence?
I wouldn't say media at all. Life hardened me to that kind of violence. And I think if you can I say these things? The R word that happened in that?
You
Or
can say
no?
whatever you want.
Okay. Well, so this guy, like imagine you get basically kidnapped, used as slave labor, and then he mercilessly I can't even talk, brutally raped over and over and over again, and just tortured for what, years of your life. I don't think breaking someone's fingers for a few hours justifies,
Okay, yeah.
revenge.
Mhm.
If somebody kidnapped me, raped me for years, and used me for my powers and made my life a living hell and pissed in my mouth, that rod is going all the way up there multiple times.
Mhm.
So Yeah.
Okay. There you go. That explains that. Gruesome, edgy. You're so edgy. When you were first starting your online life, do you remember what the initial intention was to start making your videos?
Then I wasn't trying to become an online persona or like an online career or any of that. And what it was I was getting hundreds of DMs from people that I'd known my entire life asking me why I didn't like a Star Wars movie. And I get really irritated repeating myself. So I was like, I've sent like the same DM on Facebook and like just edited a little bit, and it's like a novel. And so for each person that's asking me questions, I'm like, redoing it, and I was like, this is just taking too much time. So I was like, I'll just make one video that answers like the main questions, and I'll send it to all the people that ask me these questions. And it was too long to upload onto Facebook, so I uploaded it onto YouTube and sent them all the link. I don't think any of them watched it, but all these amazing people on the internet watched it, and it kind of blew up. So yeah.
The Last Jedi, the movie that launched 1,000 online careers.
Mm,
Uh,
something.
do you want to talk about The Last Jedi? Like that shows up later on in my questions, but The Last Jedi, what do you think was a what do you think what was it that you think made people react to it so potently?
The malicious intent behind it, like you can tell when somebody makes something out of love and it just doesn't sit with people or doesn't resonate, and it's just like, this was just my artistic expression, and like people just didn't get it, kind of like The Room. Like, it's like a cult classic, is one of the worst movies ever made, but that guy Tommy Wiseau didn't make it to offend people. He didn't make it to like destroy something. He just, that was his passion project. And instead of it being this high drama Oscar kind of bait movie, it was, people are like, this is terrible, but it's funny. And we just watch it for what it is, Whereas Ryan Johnson, he's like, no, I'm doing this, and, complete spite and maliciousness and just that kind of hate, and just, I don't know, the blatant disrespect and disregard. And then he got that kind of weird satisfaction from watching people be upset about this, because he's like, oh, you guys like Luke Skywalker? I'm going to destroy him. I'm going to ruin your childhood heroes. It just, I think that's why people were so upset by it. Because if you see someone that just genuinely, they're like, oh, I didn't know it was going to upset you. Like, this was just some story that I had within me that I wanted to share with you guys. It sucks that you guys don't like it, but this was my artistic expression. Then I think people will be like, all right, well, this still sucks, but you're not an asshole about it. But because he was an asshole about it, I think that really pissed people off even more.
Hmm.
And even the stuff with Kathleen Kennedy, it's like, she worked with George Lucas and Steven Spielberg for over 20, 30 years. And it's very obvious that she hated them the whole time. And it's all out of spite. Like, oh, the men were in charge. Now I'm in charge of their IPs. Well, let me do it my way. I hate people like that. And it drives me crazy. And, apparently drives a lot of other people crazy. So I'm not alone there.
I have heard the theory that Ryan Johnson actually did hate Star Wars and made The Last Jedi with that in mind. Like, do you think that he made it to damage the franchise, or is he just an incompetent writer?
I think he thinks he's a very smart writer, but I mean, everyone always references that episode of Breaking Bad. I don't like that episode. So whenever people like it's called The Fly.
Oh, okay. Yeah, like
Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
Do you remember the one where they're in the lab? And I mean, that's not my episode of Breaking Bad. I'm just like, okay, I get it. Like some people, maybe it's like the setting, the characters and stuff, where it's like you just get that idea randomly. It's like, oh, like this is good. Let me do it. But I think also that was like his way of getting kind of into like the Hollywood space. Like, oh, let me work on this really high profile show that everyone likes. Let me do. And then that was his in. And then working on Star Wars, from everything I've seen from the man, it's so blatantly apparent that he just doesn't like it. You know, when somebody's like trying like new food or drinking something and they make that face and it's like, oh, you didn't like that.
Mhm.
I feel like you can just see it, like his body language, the way he talks about it, he didn't care. And he wanted to be divisive. So it's irritating. Sorry, what was your question?
Okay, well, my next question is about your on your online life and your hands in the many pots of digital social media. You're on YouTube, Twitter, Odyssey, Locals, Twitch, Instagram, at least. What is the process of keeping track of all of these things?
Well, Odyssey and YouTube is pretty easy. I'm on Rumble as well. It's mirrored. I still haven't figured out how to completely mirror on Rumble, but Odyssey, it was just a matter of connecting it to YouTube and then doing that. It's mainly what you have to do is you have to run Twitter and YouTube. Those are the two main things that I really have to do and keep up with. Instagram, kind of, it's more about like posting on my story, and Instagram is like the app that I'm the most addicted to anyway, because there's a lot of art on there and stuff. So that's like my guilty pleasure app that I use. So it's easy just to share a story. Whereas Twitter and YouTube, that's actual work. So YouTube, it's not just making the videos and like finding the content, which I mean, anytime I see something that it's like, oh, I would love to talk to, people about this. And the people in my real life don't really care what's going on with the next Batman or Marvel movie. So I'm like, oh, I'll make a video and talk to all the people that are interested in this. And so that's the fun part. But then it's the editing, which I absolutely loathe. There's figuring out all the tags, what to name it, making the thumbnail, and then posting it. And so every time I post a video, I have to post it to YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook because my channel is shadow banned. So the most traction I get, ironically, is from Facebook. And because you can see all of that in your analytics and stuff. And then Twitter, it's the way to stay connected with everyone. Like everyone's on Twitter. So that's how I talk to other YouTubers and stuff like that and coordinate streams. And then, I mean, Twitter, it's kind of a cesspool of crazy people. So anytime I tweet anything like LOL, it's World War III. So basically, Twitter, I'm like, all right, who's mad at me today, kind of thing. But I mean, it's so just a part of my life now that I don't even notice it. It's like a normal part of your day, like brushing your teeth.
That people have a problem with the fact that you exist and have opinions.
Yeah.
You,
But I meant as far as like doing all of it.
Yeah, you've mentioned in your more recent videos that you are indeed shadow banned. So liking and subscribing your videos does help out with the algorithm. But how exactly does liking and subscribing in a shadow banned life help with the algorithm?
So it's any kind of engagement. So when you're shadow banned, so a person, like a person at YouTube has like they put me in this, and then they see if I ever crawl out of it, then they put me back in because I'm on a very very no list because I don't know, they don't like me. But so when a person puts you in there, then it's a bot that monitors everything. So it's not somebody you have going in and manually like immediately like demonetizing your videos or stuff like that. So you're just in a space that people don't get your content. So people don't get notifications. People don't see when you post things either on your story or on your community tab or when you do anything on there. So posting it on Twitter, that's how people see that I have a new video out, or on Facebook or sometimes on Instagram. But so the liking and the commenting and the shares, that shows like the YouTube bots that people are on their platform and interacting with this particular video. So if the YouTube bots see, oh, because the one thing that they want you to do is they want you to stay on their platform for as long as possible. So the longer that if you're commenting, liking, watching a video, so the watch time is very important. So the more that is on something, then the YouTube bot sees, oh, this video it might not be getting a lot of views, but there's a lot of interaction with this video. We should put it in the watch, the recommended for other people's channels. So like, here, watch this video, check out this video. And so it's a way for the bot to put you on other people's radars, or even people that that are subscribed to you on their radars by putting you in the recommended tab. And so even though you're shadow banned, if a video is getting a lot of traction, it will do that. And so that's why I say, like, it's all about engagement, because then the bot sees, oh, people are engaging with it. That means that they're staying on our platform, and that I mean, I'm sure you've done this where you're on YouTube and something's playing and it's like you don't interact with it. You might watch the entire video, but you didn't like it, you didn't comment on it, and then the next video plays. Well, when they see, oh, this video isn't getting a lot of views, but it's getting a lot of interaction, it's like, then we need to promote this because we want people to stay on our platform for as long as possible. So I know it sounds weird, but it does make a difference.
These are the things that you have to think about when YouTube is your job. But do you ever remember a specific moment or gradual moments when YouTube was gradually becoming your job?
When it was becoming my job, it's been so long now. I think when I got paid more, like I made more in like 1 week on YouTube than I did at one of the jobs that I was working at the time. And I was like, oh, this is nice. And then it was one of those things where it's like, it wasn't like I was working, it was, I was having fun, and this was my side thing. And the fun side thing was more profitable than the actual work thing. So I was like, well, now that I have that, let me try to put more into it. And so it was about a year into it was when I really was like, all right, I'm going to take a little break from some of the jobs that I do. So just for clarity for everyone, if you don't know, I went to art school. I have a degree in art. And so when you're an artist and you work on, I wouldn't say like freelancing, and you work on like a job basis. So it's like, oh, we need artists that can do like 3D modeling for this thing, or we need somebody that can draw for this event. So it's kind of like a gig-based job, but freelancing is the fancy way of putting it. So I was doing all of that stuff, which it's a lot, and it all comes in kind of waves. And so I was like, all right, well, there's some that I'm like doing steadily that it's like, it is what it is, but it's not as entertaining. I don't get time to like be myself or be as creative as I want to, because I'm doing someone else, or making somebody else's vision, not my own vision. And so I was like, well, I made more talking about Star Wars and like and stuff that I like than, drawing this thing for these other people. So why don't I just take some time and just try this? And then the more time I put into it, the more my channel grew, the more income I made from it. And then, the more people I was able to connect with. And I'm just like, well, I like this. So I'm having fun. I'm enjoying it. And again, it doesn't feel like work. And so then Brie Larson happened and Captain Marvel, and my channel really exploded. And it was like, okay, yeah, I'm just going to try this out full time kind of thing. Well, and even full time, I'm still doing like a million other things on the side because I like to, and I'm a workaholic. So it's to my own detriment sometimes that I have too many things going on. But yeah, just, what was that, 2018, I think. So yeah, ever since then.
When you were in college studying art, that was when George Lucas sold the rights to Star Wars to Disney. And the question is, how did that make you feel?
My heart dropped. It was my second week of classes, and it was my second class of the week, and it was my Photoshop class. And my instructor walked in. I was going to college so I could work at Lucasfilm and work with George Lucas. And he walks in and he's like, George just sold Lucasfilm to Disney. And I was like, what the fuck am I going to do with my life now? Like, no, my dreams are crushed. So, yeah, it sucked.
Great. Cheery. And you, so one of my biggest online pet peeves is when online media commentators like yourself become famous because they just reference famous things. But for you specifically, what do you add to your videos that adds your own style and spice to make your content eclectic and stand out?
I have no idea. I'm the most boring person on the face of the world. I don't know why people
That's a
are
great
interested.
plug. Well done.
You could probably tell me better than I could say something. I don't know. I can't get my own mom to like listen to me talk about Star Wars.
Well, you are no stranger to spicy cultural takes, and I think that gets you a lot of attention because, well, aren't you? Brie Larson, Star Wars sucks. Like that's not the mainstream
But
opinion.
I don't think that that's spicy. I think that that's just
All right.
my opinion and common sense. Like,
Hmm.
I mean, I feel like a lot of the times it's like 2 + 2 = 4, and I don't think I'm Albert Einstein saying that. I think that's just a commonly known thing that 2 + 2 = 4, and then people lose their minds when I say that, and it's like I don't I don't understand it, but I don't know. People, I just make stuff and people like it and ask me for more. So I really don't know what the appeal is. I don't find myself interesting. And I mean, people in my real life don't care how I feel about Batman or Star Wars. So I really don't know.
We all hate the Star Wars sequels. This is just common knowledge now. And you have expressed your distaste for Disney Star Wars and Kathleen Kennedy. But let's just throw all of that responsibility onto your shoulders. If you were ordered to write a 3-part arc trilogy of Star Wars after episode 6, how would you have done it? What would have happened?
After episode 6, so I have to do sequels to the
If
originals,
if
or
you
can I do anything?
you know what? You can do anything. Go for it.
Okay. And this is with everything now, or was this like pre-Disney?
Pre
Like,
pre Disney. Disney doesn't exist, and you are now in charge of Star Wars.
and do we have streaming services right now, or what's going on?
We're in the world that we are in now, except Star Wars Disney doesn't exist.
Okay, well, I would do a lot of things. I would hit up Timothy Zahn, the Disney version of Thrawn trilogy. We
Hmm.
do not acknowledge that version does not exist. The original Thrawn trilogy exists. So I would hit up Timothy Zahn. I'd get him working with much more talented people than the people that Disney had hired, and get him working on adaptations of those, and collaborating with George Lucas. I know George Lucas wanted to do like a thing about the wills and everything,
Mm.
but I think having Thrawn as an already established character, and so getting a actual villain, and then you have like characters like Mara Jade and Talon Card and everything that happens within the sequel, the actual sequel trilogy, which is the Thrawn trilogy. I'd start having that work, seeing how that goes. I would only hire people that love this or are qualified enough to work on this and be professional, and have a very good understanding and knowledge of Star Wars. And then I would do a couple other projects. I would start on KOTOR. So I don't know if you're familiar with the
I am
KOTOR
very
game.
familiar.
Okay. So everyone loves Keanu, and he looks like Revan. Okay.
He's
So
too old. I wish he could do it. He's too old now.
have you seen like how good he looks on like some of these movies that he's in?
Sure,
Like, yeah,
still.
he's too old,
Have,
but
have you seen Mark Strong as Malik?
who's Mark Strong?
He was
I
the
don't
villain in
know who he is.
Shazam,
This is driving me
the bald
crazy.
guy. There's like a picture of him in the Malik jaw. Looks pretty good.
That would be good.
Mm.
Well, I would start something on that, but I would do it kind of like the way that they had Game of Thrones set up. So that one I think would be perfect for a TV show. And so you have the story of Revan. I actually am one of those people. I like KOTOR 2 better than I like KOTOR
Me
1,
too.
and I
Me
love the
too.
exile
Hmm.
character. I personally prefer the arc where it's a male character, but I get that like canon wise it's a female.
Hmm.
And so
Mitra Surik.
mhm.
Silly
Well,
name, but whatever.
I know. Well, I would have, so you know how you do spin-offs and everything. Okay, so you
Hmm.
have the story of Revan and everything that's going on with Revan, and then you obviously she's there as well, and then you can have like the split. So when the Jedi, the whole Jedi Council thing, and she's like, nope, I'm going with Revan kind of
Hmm.
thing. And then that's a whole other show that you already have in the work. So you have that one that can be very well planned out and thought out. And then the movie, so you know have one of the shows where it leads to movie, kind of like Stargate. So
Mhm.
because everyone's already watched the TV show the way that it is, like with Game of Thrones and stuff like that, maybe 10 episodes per season. I like the way that Stargate and X-Files and Star Trek did it, where it's like 24 to 30 episodes per season. But if they're all high budget, well made, well written, thought out, planned out, so each episode is this like holy shit kind of thing, and have that for a few seasons. So like let's go 3 seasons, then we'll have the Exile break off and have that arc and have that own show going on. But you have to wait. You can film all that now and then release it after the KOTOR 1 movie comes out, where you get characters like Bastila,
Mhm.
and I mean, that could even be a trilogy in and of itself. And also, after all of that is done, so we have like the KOTOR series come out, we have the KOTOR movies come out. Sometime during that time, we have like the Thrawn trilogy coming out. And I don't know how I would feel about like the de-aging, or if they should just recast everyone. Like I've seen those like side by side of Sebastian Stan as Luke and
Mhm.
stuff like that. I don't know how I feel about that. So again, this is a theoretical world where I'm doing these kind of things, and for whatever reason, people have me in charge of shit. I would ask George. I'd be like, George, your executive decision. What are we doing? Kind of thing. But with everything that happened with Carrie, I think it would have fit. You'd have to kind of recast them at that point to
Mhm.
be able to do a full trilogy. And so have the Thrawn thing coming out all, and time this all so it all like doesn't to interfere too much with each other. But so you have the Revan stuff, the Thrawn trilogy coming out. Once the Revan stuff is kind of done, you think, because we all know what happens with Revan disappearing and going into the unknown regions of space,
Mhm.
and then having the exile and all of that story and all of those characters, then you can introduce Darth Bane. And as you know, I love Henry Cavill. If Henry Cavill's willing to shave his head, he
Mhm.
could definitely play a Bane character and be an awesome villain. I loved the first Bane book. I hated this next two. I do not like the way that it ended. I know that he was on, like, didn't he have to write the second book in like 6 months? I think that
It
like
may have
he
felt
had
like
to
it.
rush.
I didn't like how Bane died by having his like spirit disappear into a light like a sword, and I didn't really get what was going
I
on.
actually did it. But the whole thing of him like being obsessed with holocrons and
Mhm.
like finding Revans and like coming up with the rule of two and going to Tython, like I thought that that was freaking dope. I'd make some serious changes. I know lots of people like Darth Zana. I was so irritated with her at some points, but you can really see like just how much he put into the first book versus the second two. It's You can tell he was struggling with time and was under pressure. So I would have a serious talk with him and be like, yo, what were you really planning? And let's see how we can make this better, because I didn't like it personally. And I know some people might get irritated with that, but I'm like, you know what? If we can take something and take those ideas from it and improve upon it, I think that that's a good way to go. So I would be doing all of those things, which is things that people like. You can do like a Kyle Katan's story. I really like some of the ideas that they introduced in the Thrawn. I actually prefer the Thrawn duology versus the trilogy. And there's a scene in that where Kyle realizes that one of the guys he's working with is a clone, and how, there's that disregard for clones, like they're not real, or they're not like, I feel like droids get more respect than clones did. And he's just like, dude, like we're real people, we have families, and we just want to, be left alone and respected. And it's like, oh shit, like you can explore stuff like that for people that like social commentary. And one of the things that I didn't like about the Thrawn trilogy that I would change, which I know people might get mad about, but I felt like Vader, because already Luke has the whole arc with like fighting himself in a way, and Mara fighting him, and like Sabaoth and all of that stuff. But I felt like like Thrawn was more like Leia's mountain that she had to overcome. Like it was all kind of like what they did in the Wrath of Khan, where it's that, even though it's like kind of like a battleship, fight scene. You know, you got two captains, they can't see each other, and it's like a who's going to outsmart the other first. And as we know, Captain Kirk, he doesn't play chess, he plays poker, which is why he wins. And so even against like a being that's supposed to have like a much higher IQ than him, like Khan did, but his overconfidence is his weakness, just like the Sith. So I wish that Timothy Zahn would have gone with the direction of it being kind of like that between Leia and Thrawn, because that was the whole thing about Thrawn, was that he's so intelligent and he's one of the most brilliant tacticians to ever exist in the Star Wars universe. And I get he has to, spoiler, he gets killed by an assassin because Leia talks to the Noghri and she goes to their planet, she sees what happens. But I would have loved something like the Wrath of Khan, but with Leia and Thrawn. So while Luke is having this epic lightsaber battle with like this crazy clone Jedi, and Mara's fighting the clone of him, and it's all this intense fight scene, while Leia is like literally fighting for like Luke's fighting for like the Jedi side of it, Leia's fighting for the whole fucking galaxy side of it and the remnants of the Empire. So I would have that build up there. And I think that I just personally would have liked that whole like that mental dynamic kind of thing between Leia and Thrawn. So I would have played that up a little bit more and shown like how good of a politician Leia actually is and a leader that she is. So yeah, that was my very long answer. I talk a lot.
You went all over the galaxy and all over the timeline with
well, it's
that
crazy
answer.
how all of this source material that Kathleen Kennedy doesn't exist, how you can use it, and it's like, oh my god, chick, like come on. I get really frustrated with this kind of stuff because it's like when you read it and you know all of this stuff and you've watched it your whole life, and then you have someone that doesn't know anything about it try to explain it to you, and it's like the only thing that Disney got right was that one line where Han Solo's like, "That's not how the Force works." Like that's a summary for all of Disney Star Wars. It's like that's not how it works.
Oh, that your answer brings me into a nice transition to this next question, where in 2018 you responded to Ivan Ortega's re-edit of The Last Jedi, and you said this: Star Wars originally didn't have a title. It was just Star Wars. And they later added on A New Hope because Luke is the New Hope. And it just shows in this trailer, and they even say it, Luke Skywalker gives the galaxy hope. And that is why Luke Skywalker is one of the best characters ever written. And that's why so many people love Luke Skywalker, because he's that hope in the darkness. And he's the one that can bring Darth Vader back from the dark side. And what I noticed in your ideas for new stories, there wasn't really much Luke in there. But if he's the core of Star Wars, what can the future of Star Wars be without Luke? And who can keep that hope mantle?
Well, I mean, Luke is in there. It's just already, I didn't have to explain what Luke was doing because Timothy Zahn already did it. And I mean, I can go in further about, you know, the whole arc that Luke has, because I think a lot of people that either didn't read the books or they just heard about like, oh, well, Luke turns to the dark side. I'm like, no, Luke doesn't turn to the dark side. He tries to, you know, see from the perspective of one of his students who is touching and tampering with the dark side, and Luke tries to understand where he's coming from, and so Luke does the same thing to try to save him, and he's affected with that by that for a fucking decade. And that's the whole, you know, arc of the Thrawn duology, and that's why I like it better than the Thrawn trilogy, because it deal like that. And that's one of the things that Mara says, because Luke's like, you were my best student, why did you leave? And she's like, because you weren't, like, your focus was off. You were, you know, you were helping your students, but you were trying to deal with shit too. And it takes a decade for Luke to deal with just not even going to the dark side, but trying to use dark side elements to empathize and understand and teach one of his students, and he fails, and that affects him for a decade. And he's got to go on that whole mission with Mara to go find Thrawn's clone. That was one of the weirdest sentences I've ever said to somebody that knows nothing about Star Wars, but or, you know, normal people that are watching this.
So many clones in Star Wars all over the place.
Yeah, there's a lot of clones, but I just spoiled these books. They're great. You should actually go read them. But it's already there. I didn't have to explain what Luke was doing because I think Timothy Zahn did a really good job of that. So I was more so, you asked me what I would planning wise, Luke's story was already planned out. So that's good. Going into other elements of it, like the KOTOR and
Mhm.
Darth Bane, like things that people also like that they want to see. And that's a different side of Star Wars that if you didn't play the games or read the books, you don't really know about. Right. So, and I mean, they've done Luke's story with Star Wars
Mhm.
and, or, the original Star Wars trilogy. I mean, go look at the prequels. Like that's about Anakin. That's about Anakin
Mhm.
becoming Darth. That's how Anakin become or Darth Vader. Anakin becomes Darth Vader, and that's the prequel. So it's like we got Anakin's story, we got Luke's story. I think that the Thrawn trilogy, in my opinion, I think that one elements of it could be Leia's story. KOTOR's Revan, KOTOR 2's The Exile, and Bane is Bane. So introducing those characters, but I mean, as far as who's going to be the most timeless one that gives everyone hope, it's always going to be Luke.
Mm.
That's not going to change.
I wanted to ask you about your opinion on Anakin Skywalker's dark side transition in the prequel movies, because I in your review of Joker, the movie Joker, you brought this up. You likened Arthur Fleck to Anakin Skywalker, how they want to do the right thing and they end up going down this dark path. So since this was brought up in a movie that wasn't a Star Wars movie, this clearly is a thing that you think about quite a lot. So, if you could rewrite the prequels, how would you expand and develop on Anakin Skywalker's dark side transition?
I wouldn't rewrite the prequels per se, because I mean that's George's, and I wouldn't have the audacity to think that I would be capable of doing something like that. But I think having elements like the Clone Wars and showing, Anakin and, what he's like and like training with Ahsoka and stuff like that. I know not everyone likes the Clone Wars and like some of the shit that Dave Filoni did. Like I agree. Like there's parts of the Clone Wars that I'm just like, not my favorite things. But the episodes that Katie Lucas wrote, I think were very good, especially the ones with the clones. And my favorite clones is fives, and the episode where he finds out about like the chip that's in
Mm.
all of the clones' heads. So that way when they hear Order 66 and they turn on everyone, like that's a great episode. Or I think it's a two-parter episode. But Katie Lucas
It
wrote
might
that.
be a trilogy. I think when they're on Camino and Anakin
Yeah.
and Rex find him and he's like, oh, I know things, and then they shoot him.
Yeah. Well, that's on. He finds out about the chip on Camino, and then he
Mm.
goes to Coruscant, and
Yeah.
they're right there, and then they kill him, and I'm like, oh my god, everything could have been avoided. So with Anakin, I mean, we all know what's going to happen with him. So when you're watching the prequels, like my irritation isn't watching like what's happening with Anakin because it's there from day one, kind of like, I mean, yeah, he's a kid, but he gets angry, and we see that, and he's around people that for whatever reason don't know how to deal with children and don't know how to like reprimand them in a way that wouldn't elicit those negative kind of feelings. And then even like in the second movie when he kills everyone, like that's my two of my biggest problems with the prequels is Padme's portrayal in episode 3, and then there's a scene in episode 2, and I think it's one of the most important scenes in all of the prequels, which is where Dooku is talking with Obi-Wan. You remember when Obi-Wan's on Geonosis
Mhm.
and he's like
Yep.
in the
Yeah.
hollow thing and he's like hanging there and
Yeah. He's
it's like
floating around. Yeah.
and Dooku's walking around him talking, and Dooku basically tells him a Sith Lord is running everything. I know who it is. Join me, and we can over basically what Anakin says, like we can overthrow him. And I'm like, homeboy, he's not gonna have you join the dark side and teach you all the things about the dark side of the Force. Go with him for 5 fucking minutes, find out the plan, and get the hell out of there and go tell the rest of the Jedi. It's
Mm.
like that's what Qui-Gon would have done. And I'm like,
Mm.
Obi-Wan, you're not joining the dark. Like, cops go undercover all the fucking time. That doesn't mean that they become bad people, that they become the bad guys. There's undercover cops for a reason. Be an undercover cop for 5 fucking minutes, find out what the fuck they're doing, and then go tell everyone. And it's like, obviously Dooku, like he's dying to talk to someone about this. Obviously, if he's already hitting you up about this, he doesn't have too much of a bond with whoever the Sith Lord is that's controlling everyone. So I'm pretty sure he's dying to talk to you, considering you are his apprentice's apprentice and he has that
Mhm.
kind of emotional connection to you in some way, use that to your advantage. That's not a bad thing that you'd be doing it because you'd be saving millions, if not billions, of people's lives.
Mhm.
And Obi-Wan just drops the ball. Padme, she goes from being what, a 14-year-old queen who's like, I'm not listening to the Jedi. I'm not listening to the council. I'm going back to my planet. I don't care if they try to kill me. We're getting my shit back. And she does. Second movie, she's like, no, I'm a sinner. And oh, there's this hot guy that's trying to bang me the whole time, but I gotta get shit done. I gotta do this. I'm going right into the eye of the storm and going and fighting. And like even when they're in the arena, she doesn't look for Anakin or Obi-Wan to help her. She's like, I'm picking this lock and I'm getting
Yeah,
the fuck out of
she
here,
she's the
kind of
first
thing.
one to escape from the chains, and
Exactly.
she whips the tiger rat.
And she doesn't ask for help. Like
Mhm.
that's one of the things that I love about Padme. In the third movie, it's like, girl, I get it. You're pregnant.
Mhm.
She's crying the whole time. I'm like, girl, like I get it. You're pregnant. Wouldn't that motivate you to get more shit done for your freaking kids or your baby? For whatever reason, Anakin all of a sudden just doesn't sense that there's two babies in there. Like he just doesn't.
Mhm.
She can't feel getting kicks in two different directions.
Mhm.
And I'm like, I love George, but this is where you really learn about how he's never really been around pregnant women because I mean, all of his children, except for the most recent one with his wife, were all adopted. So he's never experienced really what it's like to be around pregnant women. My I've been around my mom when she was pregnant with my sisters. I've been around many relatives that have been pregnant. I've been friends that have been pregnant, and it's like the pregnancy rage is a real thing, and I get like the mood swings, the depression, the cravings and stuff like that. It's like Padme didn't really do any of that except for cry, and I'm like,
Mhm.
that's the last thing Padme would be doing. If anything, like just seeing like what she would do for her people. I mean, that's her baby. Like she wouldn't be up in front of the emperor being like, yeah, no, we're not doing this. Like you're sounding like a tyrant, crazy person. Like and I think that would have been, more of a motivation. Like if she had that speech where remember when she's like, this is how liberty dies with like a
Mhm.
thunderous applause. If she would have gone up against the emperor and said, like, no, I disagree with you, all this, like you're sounding like a tyrant, we need to stand up to you, and like shown people like Bail Organa, like Mon Mothma, like other people that are gonna be siding with her that will eventually form the Rebel Alliance. And that would have been like, and just have it would have been great just have a great shot of like her like staring dead at Palpatine and Palpatine like just glaring at her, and like maybe like a shot of his like eyes like glowing yellow or something like
Mhm.
that. And then it's like, okay, yeah, we need to kill her kind of thing.
Yeah,
And leading up to that, like he's the reason that she actually dies and not Anakin. Like maybe showing like her getting poisoned or something. So even though Anakin choked her and oh, we can't figure out why she lost the will to live, like something like that. I just didn't like that. But I know the question was about Anakin, but okay, Anakin and Joker. So turning to the dark side. So yeah,
uh-huh.
what is it that pushes people to
Mhm.
that point and
Mhm.
when they're gonna go that way or that way, like left or right or something like that? I find that fascinating as just as like human beings, like what will push you to do something like that and being in those type of intense situations. But
When you mentioned the Clone Wars, and there are certain episodes that you don't like, and Dave Filoni can have his moments, but sometimes he doesn't have his moments. I remember you saying that, and I think this summed it up so perfectly, that Dave Filoni has a nasty habit of just playing with his toys, I think is how you said
yeah.
it. But then you see reaction videos of Boba Fett showing up and Cad Bane showing up and young Count Dooku, and everyone's like, oh my God. So it seems to sell. So what's your advice and suggestions to the world that can stop writers from resorting to this shallow fan service?
Well, the only thing to do that is to stay independent when you're working for a major conglomerate corporation like Disney. It's like you have to get them the ratings, the views, the numbers, which eventually lead to money. And if you're not doing that, you're going to lose your job. So, and that might be, part of the reason why he's doing it. Maybe it's just he likes to do it. And he's like, oh, well, I can now. So let me play God with the Star Wars universe. But as far as other people that have maybe a little bit more morals, it's like when you don't have that breathing down your shoulder, or you can do what you want to do. And if you want to have, I don't know, a little bit more integrity, then you don't have to do that to be a quick sellout. You can do what you want to do. Whereas in this case, I don't necessarily think Dave Filoni's a sellout. I think he's doing what he wants to do, and he's playing God with the Star Wars universe. And sometimes people shouldn't do that. So, but he's in the place where he can, and he is, and it's like, well, there's nothing really I can do about it except for give my opinions on it.
Hmm. Uh, are you or are you not sick of Ahsoka showing up all the time?
I just, when it comes to this kind of stuff, I'm just like, well, at least it's not Luke throwing his lightsaber over his shoulder, you know? I don't know. I'm at that point where I never thought I'd say this about Star Wars, but sometimes I'm just like, I don't even care at this point, as long as it doesn't, as long as you don't touch Luke, as long as you don't touch Anakin and Obi-Wan, which they're doing anyway.
Mm.
Like, Ahsoka is one of those characters that, as much as I like her and I think she's a great character, it I'm just kind of like about what they're doing with her now. And like, even the whole thing when they introduced her in The Mandalorian, she had the lightsaber battle. I'm like, you should have died like a bunch of different times in this battle. Who is choreographing this kind of thing? And sometimes when she does show up, I'm like, oh, thank goodness we don't have to look at Boba Fett right now, because the show is terrible. Like the episode where it's like her and Baby Yoda and Luke.
Mm-hmm.
And so, well, now whenever I see her, I'm like, oh my God, where's Baby Yoda? Where is he? Oh my gosh, I got to see him. I love him. But I know some people are like meh about it, but I'm just like, what else are you guys gonna do now? Like, I don't know. I don't know.
When Ahsoka was first introduced in the movie and everyone thought that she was really annoying, I said, contraire, because we're going to find out more about her and she's going to become a main character, but we know that she is going to die in Order 66. And then she didn't die in Order 66. I was like, okay, screw it then. She's just always going to be alive all the time. So whatever. There's no end to the Ahsoka arc.
Well, and see, that's something that George doesn't like. He's like, no, she should die in Order 6. And I think that would have helped illustrate why Anakin turned to the dark side, or like something like even more hate in Anakin. And I don't know, I think that would have been a good moment. Like, what if Anakin was trying to save her? Or like, what if during Order 66, when Anakin goes and storms the Jedi Temple, she comes back and she has to fight him and Anakin kills her? Like, that would have been fucking crazy. That would have been like one of those scenes where everyone's on the edge of their seats. Like, what if she's just like, Anakin, no, and like he's like, I'm not Anakin anymore, and he kills her. Like, people would have lost their damn minds that had watched the Clone Wars. Like, that would have been fucking epic. Or like, maybe he doesn't kill her, maybe he's about to stop and then one of the clones shoots her, something like that. Like one of the ones that that she knew that didn't have the chip taken out. Like, that would have been crazy. But no, because she's Dave Filoni's baby, he's not going to let her die. And it's one of those things in Disney. It's like, nobody's ever really gone, right? We need money.
Yeah, that's it. We need money. So let's just get off Star Wars for about 5 nanoseconds. One of your videos that was called She-Hulk writers make fans the villain of the show, you said the following. Here we go. That's people who are getting paid millions of dollars for you. They have no idea how the real world works. They have no idea how writing works. They have no idea how storytelling works, because all of these people are so incredibly vapid that they think that everything they do is the most monumental thing on the face of the fucking planet, instead of checking their own narcissism, taking a step back, actually doing the research on the character and the universe that they are writing for, and doing some fucking work, which these people are incapable of. I may have spelled that wrong, or you said the wrong thing. Who knows?
No, I misspeak all the time. I make up words. All the words are made up by someone. They just make them make sense.
Yeah, that's very true. And what you said, that is what happens when people go to school to learn how to write and then write immediately after finishing school, because they haven't given themselves a life. But in your opinion, what kind of life do you think someone should give themselves before they start writing and tackling large, beloved franchises?
Well, so it's different when you're tackling a franchise, whereas you're coming up with something like George R. R. Martin. He was like a huge history buff, and so Game of Thrones is basically based on history, and you can go watch any interview where he explains to you, you know, how he used like these battles and these lords and stuff, and how that's basically its inspiration for Game of Thrones. I'm not a huge Game of Thrones expert, but when I do listen to stuff of him, it is fascinating to listen to, and just how much thought he put into it, and that's why books take a long time. I really like historical fiction. So I don't know if you ever read like the Clan of the Cave Bear series. The first one is the best one, and it kind of goes on from there. But just the research that what, I can never pronounce her last name. It's like Owl or something. It's not spelled like owl the bird, but it's Owl. Um, all the research that she put into it, and when she talks about it, she just said that she was sitting up there at night and she just had this random like idea. She's like, I'm just going to write this story, and she's like, it's going to be about a girl taking care of an older man, but they're different. They're not the same. There's something different about them. And then she was doing research and she found out, oh well, during this time of if not human history, but the history of our planet, there was two different types of, you know, humanoid creatures, which were Neanderthals and then Homo sapiens. And so she's like, oh, let me look into that further. And just the amount of decades of research that this woman put in, and she actually went to all of these places when she writes the third or fourth book, when they're traveling, so they have to travel over like glaciers and go across Europe. That's, you know, a big feat to do back during the end of the ice age. All of the research that she went into doing that, and you can really tell like she's been to these places in her writing. And so when you have a franchise that's already established, well, then that your homework's kind of already done for you. All you got to do is go write the source material. If you're writing on Star Wars, go write all the Star Wars. Go get every freaking book. Go, if you don't have time to read a book, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, ask for your boss to let you do the damn research, or you can get the audiobook and listen to the audiobook. Maybe you're an audio learner. Get the Ahsoka book. They just came out with Tales of the Jedi, and they changed it from the Ahsoka book, where in the Ahsoka audiobook I would highly recommend listening to, because it's Ashley Eckstein that narrates it. So Ahsoka narrates the Ahsoka book, and about, you know, how she gets her lightsabers, you know, the white lightsabers, and how she, you know, heals the kyber crystal from the Sith blade, and that's how she gets her lightsabers. And they change that in this Tales of the Jedi, like this the finale, and it's like, Dave, didn't you help write the damn book? Like, isn't like what's going on here? Like, you're not even paying attention to your own continuity here that you apparently love so much, but you love it so much until it's no longer useful and you disregard it. So mainly like with the people watching Star Trek, it is so abundantly clear they have never watched Star Trek. It so abundantly clear. They're like, this is the first trans character. It's like, no, the first trans character was actually back in the 60s, like in the original Star Trek. The first gay character, no, it's not the first gay character. No, that's the first androgynous character. It's like, no, that's actually not the first androgynous character in Star Trek. One of the first species in Star Trek Enterprise that they are introduced to are asexual and androgynous. And then, oh well, this and this, and it's like everything that you're claiming you're the first time it's ever been done, it's already been done before, and you people just don't know, and you've never, because you've never watched it, you don't know anything about Star Trek. You want this character that does this and this, and I'm like, you already have that character. That character already exists. You want a villain doing all of these things? Hello, I don't know if you watch Picard, but it's like lore exists. Oh, they just forgot about lore. It's like, you guys just it drives me crazy. So when it comes to things like She-Hulk, they had the perfect freaking template. So I don't know if you watch any of my aside from that video, any of my other She-Hulk videos. So the reason why Jennifer Walters became a lawyer was because her dad is a sheriff, and he's one of those like, you know, typical dad cops, like the cold, doesn't really show emotions, like, yeah, the thing that you would kind of see like in shows like when we were kids, and like the stereotypical dad's a cop kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so her dad is up against like the big villain in LA, which is this guy named Trask. And her mother dies because Trask sets a trap for her father, and it gets her mother, not her father, and he kills her mother. So she goes into law to be a lawyer to put men like Trask behind bars. So it's this very noble story, is that she wants, and she's not a bad person. She's, you know, spunky. She's got her her life, her success, her own little personality. And she just happens to be Bruce Banner's cousin. And they both have the same rare blood type, which Bruce says in the very first Savage She-Hulk issue. And then because she's trying to put this bad guy away, Trask, he's got guys tailing her. They shoot her in the back. Hulk just happens to be there. He saves her because her doctor, or not her doctor, her neighbor is a doctor, and they break into his like little back medical office, and Bruce gives her the transfusion, which only works because they have the same blood type that he knows, and he doesn't think he's going to turn her into a Hulk, and he's got to, kind of figure that out later. And then, but literally, this is the first issue of She-Hulk. She-Hulk, Savage She-Hulk #1. And then she's in the hospital. The guys show up to kill her because they figure out that she didn't die. She turns into the She-Hulk, beats the ever-living shit out of the guys that shot her in the back and tried to kill her, gets them to confess their crimes in front of the police that show up, and they get arrested. She books it because she feels like, she's transitioning out of She-Hulk back into Jen. She gets back in, the hospital bed, and then that's the episode. So it's like, you want strong, independent women? There's Jennifer Walters. You want yay girl power story? First episode or first issue of She-Hulk is literally that. And they didn't care because they didn't read it, and they didn't know that her mother is dead and that her father is a cop. They make her father a bumbling idiot and a mom that's trying to set her up with some dude at Starbucks. It's like, you guys are stupid and you don't do research, and that drives me fucking crazy. And the life experience part, it's very clear that they don't have any. Like, posting a picture of your dog or your cat on Instagram isn't a life experience.
Cosplaying. You have cosplayed many a time, and you have cosplay calendars and cosplay pictures all over the place. But yeah. I've always been a little on the fence on the concept of cosplaying, because you spend so much money and put in so much effort for a costume that you, aside from pictures, wear at most once or twice at a convention, and then you may never see it again. You chuck it away, or you might throw it in the bin. It all seems so fleeting. But in your experience with cosplay calendars, cosplaying digitally and in real life, what's your experience been like dressing up?
Well, you're like, when my dad tells me I have too many pairs of shoes, you're only going to wear it once. It's like, no, I don't care. I want it and I like it and I will have it just so I can have it. Right. But my experience with it, well, so my birthday is Halloween. And so I always dressed up on my birthday, and when I was a little girl, like, I liked playing with dolls and I liked playing dress up. So now as an adult, it's become socially acceptable to dress up, and you just call it cosplay instead of calling it dress up. And you get to get like cooler costumes, and you get to make it look realistic, and there's like a whole art behind it. And the one that I like went like really far into, at least my first cosplay calendar, was like the Poison Ivy one. And like doing like I gotta, when you actually go and like look at for these pieces, so I, again, like, yeah, it does get expensive. I'm like, if I can find things on Amazon, that's great. And I know some people don't like Amazon. I don't like leaving my house and interacting with humans. So if I can get my things without having to do like as little human interaction as possible, I will do it. And especially when it's like cheaper on Amazon anyway. So I actually got like a green swimsuit, and I wanted something to like put the leaves on. So it was like one of those one-piece green swimsuits with ruffles. And I was like, perfect, I'll just glue the leaves to the ruffles. And it just kind of worked out perfectly. And I did a whole video on that, so people can go and watch that if they want. And I did have to go to the store to find the shoes, and I was like, these are like little booties, and just glue the leaves onto that and like do it on a budget, but still kind of make it look good. And so that way it'll photograph well and it'll look good in person. Those heels were a little too intense for me. I was a little too ambitious, so those do not feel good in person, but they looked great in the photos when I was wearing them. But I enjoy it, and it's something that when it comes to like the money aspect of it, I haven't spent so much on something that I'm just like, oh, like that was really a pain in the ass that I spent that much on something. There was one this last time around. I was cosplaying as Miranda from Mass Effect, and I got her blaster, and I found someone on Etsy that did it. They make like the 3D printed and then they paint it and they put the lights and the sound effects into it. And I was like, well, I don't mind supporting like someone with their own small business and they're taking the initiative to like make these kind of things. So I don't mind putting money into that. And the guy like messaged me and he said, hey, it takes like some time for me to make this. And I was like, oh yeah, no problem. And months later, and I'm like, I kind of need to take these photographs, dude. Like, where it's been months, like not just like 2 months, it's been like half a year. Where is this thing? And it was like over 200 and something bucks. And I'm like, all right, where is it? And I messaged him and I got an automated response saying that the store is now closed. And I was like, all right, well, maybe he'll respond. He didn't. I messaged him again, no response. So I was like, okay, F this. And I went to Target, got a $14 Nerf gun, spray painted it and painted it myself. And like it looked better than the one that I had ordered. So I got my refund for that and everything. But it's one of those things where now I'm like, if just how I don't like when interacting with people when I go shopping, I'm like, if I can do this all myself, I can, since I have that background of already, knowing how to paint and how to do these kind of things. Well, it doesn't have to be expensive if you know how to do it right. And if you know how to sew, which I do, if you know how to paint, which I do, and you can be a little bit creative on how to make props and stuff, then it doesn't have to be expensive. I mean, all you're paying for at the end of the day is just the materials, and it just, how much time do you want to put into it? And time is going to be really the deciding factor on it.
I'd like to think that that's the best aspect of cosplaying because it's so bespoke and it's so do-it-yourself. Although when you get the Miranda Lawson onesie or the Samus onesie, that's
I
just a
had
thing
that
that you
custom made. The
really.
Miranda, yes.
Oh
So the
wow.
Miranda one did not exist. That I hit up. So the artist that designed my Rogue bodysuit, he hit me up because he's like, "Hey, I designed these, and then Chinese companies rip them off and put them on Amazon and stuff." And I was like, but he messaged me, he said, hey, if you ever need anything designed, hit me up. And I was like, oh, really? So I was like, I want this, I want this, I want this. And so he custom designed the Miranda bodysuit for me. So I hired an artist to do that. He's an artist that does those kind of things. So he designs them. And then I send like, he gives me like the flat layout pages. I send it to a company in China that makes it and, sends it back to you, and so it's there and you can customize it in different ways. Like Miranda, she's got like it's the neck and then like this chest piece is cut out, and so like that, like you have to tell them cut out this piece and da da da. And I'm kind of a hobbit human, so I have weird proportions, so then I have to customize it further and alter it so it'll fit me properly. But so that wasn't just like I bought a bodysuit on Amazon. I hired an artist to design it for me. And so this next cosplay calendar, I cosplay as 7 of 9, and I had him design me the 7 of 9 bodysuit. And I'm the only one on the planet Earth that has it. So it's a bodysuit, but I mean, that's what 7 of 9 wears. Miranda wears a bodysuit. So some characters, it's like some people can say, oh, well, that's, you're just wearing a bodysuit. It's like, but that's what the character wears.
Do you ever have friends of friends or acquaintances or strangers who find out that you are a nerdy pop culture lady and then just try and test your nerd cred by chucking a bunch of nerdy questions at you? Does that happen a lot?
Not anymore, but that was the story of my life growing up. Anytime someone finds out, it's usually people that are kind of around my same age. Adults don't like. Well, I mean, I am adult now, which is weird. But when I was a kid, like adults find out, they get so excited. They're like, "Oh my God, you like this thing?" Like now, in the back of their head, they're probably like, "No, I know what to get you for your birthday and Christmas." But then they're like, "Oh, let's talk about it." Whereas especially with Star Wars fans. I love Star Trek people, but when it comes to Star Wars fans, I always got this, which is like you meet someone that's a Star Wars fan and it's immediately like, how much do you know? And they pop quiz, which I'm just as guilty of doing that. On my case, it's like, well, are you a casual viewer? Are you a movie viewer? Are you a book person? Are you a comic person? And it's kind of like to gauge what level someone's at. So that way, like, okay, well, we can talk about this. Whereas for me, it felt like, do you actually know anything, or do you just like the movies? And I did that before, where this one chick, she was, when I was in college, and everyone's like, Anna, you got to meet this one chick. She's like a huge Star Wars fan. Da, da, da. And I made a Han Shot First reference and she didn't get it.
Oh.
And I was like, because she's like, oh, I was like, who's your favorite race? She's like, oh, Han Solo. And I was like, oh yeah. And I don't remember exactly what I said, but I made the reference and she had no idea what I was talking about. And I was like, okay. But yeah, I've had people like, oh, you're a Star Wars fan, really? Let me
Mm.
give you 10 million questions. And I'm like, well, you actually got that wrong, but okay, that's fine, kind
All
of
right. Well,
thing. Uh, like what?
oh, I don't have 10 million questions for you. I have 16 questions for you. Are you ready?
Yeah, yeah, 16. Okay, let's see how fast I can get them.
1 to 5 are general nerdy pop culture questions, and then 6 to 16 are Star Wars questions. You ready?
Okay, oh
All right, here
God.
we go. Question 1. You
Uh,
have cosplayed as Poison Ivy. What is Poison Ivy's real name?
Pam,
Uh,
Pamela,
Pamela what?
Pamela Isley.
There we go. Okay, good. Question 2. Who was the first voice actress for Harley Quinn?
Oh, I don't know anything about voice actors. I know
Okay.
Kevin Conroy. Don't ask me anything else.
Not a Batman fan then.
I
Question
am a
3.
Batman fan. I don't like Harley Quinn. Well,
Hmm.
she's okay. She's
You
okay.
you don't like her now, or even back in cartoon land, she wasn't that good. You
She's
got a
kind of
you got a painting back there. So what's going
my
on?
best friend likes Harley Quinn. My
Oh,
boyfriend likes
okay.
Harley Quinn. And
Mm.
to be fair, I asked my audience. I said, "Who I'm gonna paint the Phantom. I really adore Bruce Timm and his designs and stuff. So I said, "Who do you guys want me to paint first?" And they picked it. That's not a me thing.
Okay.
But
Okay.
when Batman animated series was coming out, I could not read. So I could not read the voice actors' names.
All right. Okay. Yeah. Sure. Okay.
Easy.
All right. You've angered a lot of people saying that you don't like Harley Quinn.
She's people that watch my channel, they know I like Catwoman. But when it comes to voice actors, I don't know their names.
Mhm.
I feel so bad saying that. I barely know actors' names.
All right. Well, there's no more voice actor questions. But question
Okay.
3 of 16. Spell the name of Thor's hammer.
I don't spell. It's
Can,
Melnor. I don't know how to
can you not
spell
read
it.
now?
I can read now. I'm severely dyslexic, and you want me to spell something? I can't
What's
even
it
spell
called?
Kashyyyk. Huh?
What's it called?
I just said Mjolnir.
Close enough. Question 4. In The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, what plant does Aragorn tell Sam to get to
Oh
slow the
shit.
poison of Frodo's ring wraith wound? It has
Oh
two
shit. I
names.
could draw you a fucking picture of it. It's like the weed thingy. I don't
It
know.
is a
I
weed.
don't know.
I will
I
accept
don't know
two.
that thing.
It's called the Athelis plant or kingsfoil.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. Question 5. What are Wolverine's claws and skeleton made out of?
No, element, not element, adamantium. Blah.
Okay. And adamantium.
Adamantium.
That's what
I
your
wanted to
skeleton's
say
made out of.
aluminium because
Adamantium. All right, Star Wars questions. Here we go. And I think you've already answered like 3 of these already. So if you get these wrong, then that's just weird.
I don't
Question
know.
6. What Jedi trained Qui-Gon Jinn?
Dooku.
Very good.
Katabi.
What is Palpatine's first name?
Oh, Sheev, right?
Yep. Question
Yeah.
8. How long are you digested for in the Sarlacc pit on Tatooine?
Thousands of years.
Yeah. Oh, over 1,000 years. That's 1,000 years.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Question 9. What is the technical name for a destroyer droid?
Ah, fuck. Ah, shit. You put me on the spot. Now I'm not going to know these. This is
Master
embarrassing.
destroyers. Where
I
are
know.
those master destroyers?
No, no, pass. I can tell you how many engines an Imperial Star Destroyer has, but fuck.
How many?
13.
Yeah, that makes it symmetrical, I guess. Droidica. Where are those
Oh, fuck.
droidicas?
I knew that.
Not a Star Wars fan, not a destroyer droid fan.
I'm
Question
not. No.
question 10. What is the name of the Wookiee language? You don't have to spell it.
I don't know that one.
You said Kashyyyk, so you're
Patrick?
on the right planet. Kashyyykees. No, it's I don't know if even I'm going to say this right, but Shiriwook. Shiriwook.
Mm-mm.
All right. Question 11. What does AT-AT stand for?
All terrain something something. I never remember this one. But I'm glad you said AT-AT. I
Mhm.
hate it when people say at because it's
Mhm.
like it's
Mm.
R2D2. It's
Mhm.
C3PO. Oh, it's not at, it's ATAT.
All right. Well, you got halfway there. All-terrain attack transport.
And I know. I never remember it. I only remember the first one.
All right. You mentioned Darth Bane a while ago, and I was a little bit afraid that you were actually going to answer this question before I got to question you on it. This is question 12. What is the name of the dark side parasites that attach themselves to Darth Bane in the novel? Say it again.
Obelisk or something like
Obelisk.
that.
That's
Yeah,
I'll accept that. Very good. Question 13. Other than Anakin or Sebulba, name one other pod race pilot at the Bunta Eve race in The Phantom Menace.
Nope.
You sure? None of them. They do say some of their names out
I
loud.
didn't have those action figures, so
Okay. Not even Ben Quadranaros, the guy that with the four and he blows up. It's funny.
no,
Okay.
I didn't have those ones.
No,
because that was one of the things that I liked when I was a kid. I mean, you probably know too. Like you can see some of them on my wall. It's like it has like the action figures. It tells you the name and kind of a little bit about them sometimes, and then like here's the other ones and whatnot. So I was able to learn the ones that aren't like said in the movies based on those, and my mom wouldn't buy me those ones, so
I had all the pod race Legos. That was fun. That was fun to play around with. Question 14. In Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, what 5 planets contain star maps?
Oh my God. Telos?
No.
Wait, why am
No.
I thinking what games? Oh, is this one?
The first one.
The first one has the star maps, huh? Okay, Tatooine has one. What are the planet? Manon has one.
Yep.
I just fucking played this game too.
Tatooine.
Do
Manon.
we go? You do go to Korriban, right?
Yep. Tatooine, Manon, Korriban. Two
No,
left.
Telos is the second one. Which one? What am I? Kashyyyk, and then what's the other one?
The first one you find.
The first one we find.
Tatooine, Manon, Korriban, Kashyyyk.
We start off on the asteroid and then we go somewhere. I can't remember the order. What's the one with? No, that's KOTOR 2.
Asteroid. Yeah, I was confused for a second.
I know.
First one, star maps.
You start on the asteroid and then the city planet. Oh, the one where you meet what's her face, Mira. What? That's not Coruscant. That's something else.
Mira. I'm so confused. At asteroid. What's happening?
I keep getting KOTOR 2 and KOTOR 1 mixed up because KOTOR 2 is the last one that
the first one.
That's
what's
the name of the city? The city planet on that one.
It's not a city. You're way off when you're saying city. The first star map that you see.
I'm failing.
Tatooine, Manon, Korriban, Kashyyyk. Those are the 4 that you find after this first one. The first one that you find.
It's not Telos. Where did I go? It's been a while since I played KOTOR 2. No, it's the one that they blow up.
The first one.
Yeah, it's the one where Karth is there, and it's like, can I kill him? It gets blown up. What the fuck is the name of this stupid planet?
I've never been more confused.
The first letter. I'm
D.
D.
This is the first game.
I'm gonna facepalm, aren't I?
Hopefully. Tatooine, Manon, Korriban, Kashyyyk. And
they're on the planet. You have to go down into the sewers, and that's where you meet Mission. And
go forward a little bit in the story. What planet do you go after that planet? Oh,
after that planet. Where do we go to?
After Taris.
My God, Dantooine.
Okay, facepalm, do it now.
I know, facepalm. I will. Okay, what's the name of the planet that I'm describing then?
Taris.
Fuck! I knew it started with a T. You go to Taris, then Dantooine. God, I feel retarded now.
All right, okay. Question 15.
You see how I'm not good with names? You got me on this with the naming.
I thought since you know the game, you would know, and you played it recently.
You know how bad it's like with directions. I'm like, when you go to the corner that has the really ugly tree next to the post office, like that's where you turn right. Whereas people are like, go to 14th Street and and I'm like, what? I don't know names. I can tell you about it though. I can draw you a picture of it.
Sure. You could have said dirt, water, sand, grass, and trees, and I may have accepted that. That's close enough.
No, right? The planet with all of the Jedi.
Yeah, yeah. I was thinking of that as a hint. But question 15. Question 15. What was
God.
the name of Luke Skywalker's snowspeeder gunner during the Battle of Hoth in The Empire Strikes Back?
Oh my God. And he dies.
Mm-hmm.
It's not Biggs. What the fuck is his name? I know this. I know the answer to this question. Why did you give me all the questions with names? Um,
Okay, sorry. The last question is a
you,
name one as well.
I know. Every single question has been named. What's the name of this,
I
and this?
I I would accept just his first name. Luke shouts it a couple times.
I know.
One
I've watched
syllable.
this movie a bilzillion times. You put me on the spot and I'm blanking. I
Dak.
have this fucking action figure too. It's on this shelf.
Mm.
Hmm. Dean
No,
is not going to remind me because
his
he
name's
dies.
Dak. Dak Rolter. Mm,
I knew
mm. Okay, question 16. Another name one. A very difficult question. If you get this one,
I'm gonna laugh if I get this one.
I wouldn't laugh. This one is intentionally difficult. All right, here we go. Question 16. A hard Star Wars question.
Okay.
In Star Wars Legends, what is the name of Darth Sidious's master's master?
He's a Bith alien.
Nice, very nice.
Yeah, and I know he's a Bith.
Mm.
Because he's in the Plagueis book and Plagueis kills
Hmm.
him. And oh my God.
He has two names as well, a Darth name and
Uh,
a real name. I will accept either one. Ooh.
I know.
If you get this right, you will redeem all of your other
No, I'm not because
incorrect answer.
I am terrible with names. I go to family reunions, people that I've known my entire life, and I tell my boyfriend, I'm like, introduce yourself so I can remember my relatives' names. Um,
Starts with a
yeah,
T.
I know he's a
Darth
bit
Darth T something.
not Tyrannus,
Mm.
Darth Tithius. You got me. I know
Darth
he's a
Tenebrous.
Tenebrous.
Tenebrous. Sidious,
Yeah,
Plagueis, Tenebrous.
yeah.
His real
Well,
name is Rugus Gnome.
well,
Fun
well.
fact.
I asked this question to another Star Wars person and see if they know if he's a Bith or not.
Mm,
And for
mm.
for people watching that don't know what a Bith is, a Bith, if you go to the Jabba's palace scene, they're
Yeah.
the ones that are singing in
The Tatooine the cantina, not Jabba's palace.
I put my action figures next to each other, and they are in my version of Jabba's
You're
palace.
you're losing your Star Wars cred by the
I
second.
really am. I know.
All right, well, on that note, after I have exposed you as not being a Star Wars fan at all, I
You're
have
gonna get
to.
like 10 comments calling me fake geek girl because I
Mhm,
don't know
mhm.
a thing. But it's
Well,
okay. I know the big picture. And I've read all these things. It's just when you're reading Star Wars, Star Trek, Marvel, DC, there's a lot of names going on right
yeah,
now.
there is. Yeah. Well, that leads me to the last question, the question that
Oh
I
God.
always ask at the end of all of this. Oh, this isn't like a trivia question. That's all done. This is just the last general question, which is generally, why are stories important?
Well, that's a big question.
Mm.
Stories are important because you need something to escape from your everyday life from, and it's a way to, I don't know, it's something that humans have always gone to throughout all of our history as a way to communicate and to teach one another and to inspire one another. I mean, they were doing it and painting it on cave walls around campfires since the beginning of time. And I think we're all attracted to that because it speaks to us on maybe a level that we don't fully understand yet about us as, a species. And I mean, this is a big question. I guess for me, it keeps me inspired and entertained and just something to maybe provide a different perspective and look forward to, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Like it's like you listen because, and this is one thing that I always say when it comes to conversations is when people are talking to one another, you don't listen to understand, you listen to respond. Whereas when you're listening to a story, you are listening to understand. And so and we wouldn't listen to them if we didn't want to. So I think, it's more about understanding yourself and why you're attracted to certain stories and why you continue to tell certain stories. And I don't mean like this is the story about my life, but it's like, why do people tell kids about Peter Pan or, Greek mythology
Hmm.
and stuff like that? It's to understand ourselves and to inspire us and to keep us going, because at the end of the day, you have to have something that you aspire to.
Anna, also known as that Star Wars girl, thank you so much for coming on to One Story Building.
Thanks for inviting me and proving that I really need to get better at names and spelling, which I don't think I'll ever get better at spelling. But yeah, that was interesting. That was fun. You got me. I've never had anyone do that before. So congratulations on that. Thanks for having me on.